House versus Senate, those politics, not new, right?
Apparently, we are like the redheaded stepchildren.
You are. At the end of the week, Washington empties out fast. Lawmakers, staffers, they're all heading home. But not before they stop here.
Hello and welcome back to the Punchbowl News Townhouse. I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm still Jake Sherman.
The partial government shutdown that started Saturday is now over.
But the snow, Anna, is still really strong here in the District of Columbia. And there are still, I was looking online this morning, there are still schools that are on delay, and we are 2 weeks past the storm.
It's pretty incredible.
Unbelievable.
Our guest in the townhouse today is Florida Congresswoman Paulina Luna.
She does not have snow in her district, I don't imagine. She has been very big on a lot of fights recently. We're going to talk about all of them. The DHS Funding fight, the Save America Act, which is a bill that forces people, that seeks to force people to prove their citizenship before they vote. She's one of the chief Republicans behind the stock ban. She was involved in a fight last year on paid parental leave for members of Congress and their staff. She has a lot of interesting issues. We're going to talk to her about that and so much more. I mean, I don't know how much more because we only have a certain amount of time, but a lot of stuff.
A lot to get to. We also have ACE reporters, Mychael Schnell, congressional reporter at MS Now, and our very own co-founder, John Bresnahan.
How did we convince him to do this?
In the townhouse. He's a content creator, folks. We just can't stop him. We will get right to that at our interview with the Florida Congresswoman right after a quick word from our presenting sponsor, American Beverage.
Presented by American Beverage. When it's time to decide what goes on your table, facts are the first ingredient. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing clear information about the ingredients in their beverages at goodtoknowfacts.org.
Congresswoman Paulina Luna, the Republican of Florida. Welcome to Punchbowl News' Townhouse and Flying Update. Thanks.
All right. We have an AP and an APL, which we just kind of came to a conclusion on, which is interesting. Okay. The House canceled votes. Thank you for sticking around. You had the prayer breakfast, a lot of things going on. You are in the middle of everything right now.
Not intentionally, by the way.
It's always intentional. So let's talk about it. I mean, the Save America Act, which we'll talk about, which is the citizenship proof for voting, DHS spending, stock ban, relations with Russia, a lot of stuff. Anna, I'll give you the first question.
All right.
Give you the honors.
Let's dive right in. You are a big proponent of the SAVE Act, now the Save America Act. This is a bill, as Jake said, that would require proof of citizenship before you register to vote. States would be required to verify ID, and you'd have to show your ID to vote. Democrats, of course, have resisted this. You want John Thune to blow up the filibuster to pass this bill. Explain your reasoning, because the Senate seems to be a little cold to this.
A little cold to it.
A little. Well, what's been interesting is, so the voter ID stuff is, I think it's like an 80-20 issue. So a majority of Americans, regardless of party affiliation, want voter ID. And we actually saw that in the CNN poll.
But this isn't only voter ID, right? This is citizenship.
Citizenship and voter. But I mean, in general, people understand that, right? They want to feel that their elections are secure. And you're also hearing a lot of pushback from some Democrats that are saying that they're worried that the midterm elections will be stolen by Donald Trump. So let's play into that reasoning for a little bit, because if you're genuinely concerned about that, why would you not want voter ID? Okay, so that's me playing devil's advocate. But aside from that, this issue, especially for my constituents, is very important. Voter ID, voter security, making people feel comfortable with their elections, number one issue. But what I have particular issue with is that the Senate has now sat on this for over 300 days. And something that I think not just myself, but many members of Congress are tired of is messaging bills. We do so much. We have the majority, we have the White House, and yet we sit here and we'll do our messaging bills. We get our sound bites on television, but it doesn't actually feel like we're doing much of anything. And so specifically with this, you guys know that the reason why the SAVE Act passed initially was also because of me. Remember that vote by proxy?
I do, but also, and there were some Democrats, I believe, who voted
for it.
The first time.
Yes, but it was attached to, remember, they had the rules.
Yes, I do remember.
And so because of that, that's actually how they were able to break through not allowing new moms to vote. And so I would like to,
that too.
Yeah, we can get to that. But going back to that, though, I think that this is one of the top issues in the country. And when you see Thune say, well, he doesn't want to break through the traditional filibuster, there is this perspective among many senators, not just Leader Thune, that is an institutional thing that needs to be respected. However, when you look at the historical significance, and we've talked to many senators about this, and we've even talked to the president about this, but the talking filibuster is something, and I would say that, it's kind of considered like old parliamentary legislating, but it's how Congress and the Senate was supposed to function. And so this idea of having a filibuster, and if you don't have the votes, they're just not even going to try, to me is a cop-out response. Not to mention, it's not like I read through the Senate rules and procedures, which I'm considering doing now, because apparently they have all these tricks and tools that they can use. But the fact is that I didn't just pull this out of my bag of tricks. I was talked about it. We talked about it at the White House. I know that they were actively in conversations. To say that I'm somehow bullying the majority leader because I'm simply informing the American people on what's very much so on the table is something that I think is not supposed to be disrespectful, but something that the American people should know.
Okay, so let's talk about blowing up the filibuster, or the talking filibuster, for a second, because this is something, and not only, you're not the only one that's talking about this. A lot of conservative Senate rules experts are for this. Mike Lee is obviously a big proponent of this. Elon Musk has taken up this cause. Everyone's taken up this cause.
Nicki Minaj.
Well, I didn't ever think
Had that on your bingo card?
Nicki Minaj and
She's
Senate
very
procedure.
smart. She's very smart.
Yeah, but just getting into Senate procedure, usually you're not seeing the
Yeah,
two.
this is when the nerds of the world unite.
Yeah, there you go. There are far-reaching implications for this, though, right? During a talking filibuster, Democrats could offer any amendment they want. Many of those would succeed at a 51 vote threshold, right? This would be a big sea change. I mean, you would see all sorts of provisions that Republicans don't like get possibly passed and get put into law. Not to mention the Senate floor could be tied up for weeks. If Democrats won the majority, they would be able to do all sorts of things with 51 votes. Because once you get rid of it, it's gone. It is. I mean, we've seen that.
We've seen it before.
We've seen it with judicial nominees, with all sorts of things. How do you square that? Because I think there's a lot of times, and you and I have talked about this among many other things in the past, there's a lot of times where people want to say, they say that they don't mind if Democratic, priorities pass or the other party's priorities pass. They just want a fair process. But in reality, you're a Republican. You want Republican policies to pass. So how do you square those two?
I think something like voter ID, right? And this is correlated, so I'll answer both questions. But something like voter ID fundamentally changes the way that people feel about voting. I think it encourages voter turnout. But also, too, if you then have policy, let's say the talking filibuster is embraced. Let's say you have Republicans and Democrats working together in Senate that is passing legislation that their voters don't like. If you have a secure and fair election, then those voters have now, with confidence, the know-how and the knowledge and the backing that their vote counts, and they can then go to the ballot box and remove those people if they don't like the policies. But I think to potentially have voter ID pitched up against the fact that, well, what if policies are then going to be passed that the voters don't like? Well, then that's the obligation of the voters and the people of that state to then remove their elected official at the ballot box. But what is so crazy about this entire argument is, and I put this out, and I think that this resonated, especially with a lot of people that are so disenfranchised with the military-industrial complex and this constant need for there to be war and intervention in foreign countries, is that the same people that are advocating for boots on the ground in other countries, regime change, or talking about protecting democracy in republics abroad, don't want voter ID here in our own states. You have a very famous video of Barack Obama giving an ID going to vote. And most people in general, I think when they go to vote, they think that they have to, but the fact is that in not all states, they don't require it.
So let's just zoom out a little bit, because you're obviously House versus Senate, those politics, not new, right?
Apparently, we are like the redheaded stepchildren.
You are.
Like the mighty Senate.
I love the House, but not everyone does.
Thank you.
What do you think of John Thune right now? I mean, he's basically dismissed this as saying, they're not going to be doing this.
I don't know that he's fully dismissed it. I do think that I probably went public with some information maybe I shouldn't have, but given the nature of this topic and how incredibly important it is, I do think that certain things are needed to be shared with the American people. And I also think that if he's doubling down on not doing this because of me, then John Thune, I'm sorry that I went public with that information, but do not put something like voter ID at the forefront and kill it because you don't you think that it appears that you're being bullied by a House member. That's not how it's supposed to work. The Senate is supposed to be equal to the House, and we're supposed to have open and equal dialogue with the White House, and that's how it's supposed to function. And there is this kind of sibling rivalry that exists. So what I will say is that it seems that there has been a lot of discussion. You heard Thune say that he was going to go to conference and discuss this. And I think that many senators, you have Katie Britt, you have Lindsey Graham saying that he's going to support it. But I do also understand that he does not have the votes right now to remove a traditional filibuster. And so I've said this before, I'll say this again. I do believe that the only way voter ID is going to pass is if it is attached to a must-pass piece of legislation. I think that that's going to be FISA.
That's what was my next question was going to be. You think so? I always say FISA is. I always say that it's very difficult to add one hard thing to another hard thing. It doesn't make anything easier, right? So if FISA is a nightmare for you guys.
I voted against FISA. I've never voted for FISA reauthorization in its current form. It does need to be changed, and there's a few things that can be done. For example, putting a court reporter in the FISA courts to actually record, ensuring that people's constitutional rights are not being violated, etc. But in general, I've never supported it. However, with this being an issue of national security, voter ID, etc., and a must-pass piece of bipartisan legislation where you know that a lot of people, I think the entire system, anytime FISA comes up for a vote, will do what they have to do to get it through. And so that's why I say the only way I think to do it right before, I think, the midterms, and also too, just in general, will be on this. You heard Schumer come out and say a couple days ago, and Hakeem Jeffries, that they don't want voter ID and that it's Jim Crow era laws. Ironically enough, Hakeem, I believe, also said that about the filibuster. But aside from that, you actually now have Schumer, I think just today, saying that his party supports voter ID. So I don't know where he's at other than they're realizing their own base is supporting that.
Where's this? So, okay, a few things to unpack here. Where's the speaker on this?
I think the speaker is with me on this understanding that we're going to have to do it on a standalone, hope the Senate does the right thing, but that it's likely going to have to go on FISA.
But could I ask just one more follow up there?
Yeah. And I don't speak for the speaker, but that's based on my conversations.
Yeah. And you're going to have people on the House Intelligence Committee and on the Armed Services Committee say, well, don't screw around with our bill. Our bill is complicated enough. This does not belong on the intelligence reauthorization bill, on this foreign intelligence reauthorization bill. You're going to have to deal with that.
I understand. And I also understand that they're going to have a hard time in a slim majority getting the votes for that.
Yeah.
So they better play ball.
All right.
Look, FISA, if it died in its current form, okay, no love lost with me. But SAVE Act, voter ID, very important. I think FISA does need to be heavily reformed. And so there's a way to thread this needle.
Can you be convinced to vote for a rule if Mike Johnson doesn't put the Save America Act in the bill? I mean, we're talking about the DHS funding. It's going to expire a week tomorrow.
Yeah, so I actually talked about this. I do think that he'll get a rule vote. And I say that because right now we have seen that the perspective of Schumer, and I think that there was just a list of 10 demands that Schumer had made with Hakeem. One of them was that ICE agents must present ID. And I was like, well, isn't that ironic? You want ICE agents to present ID, but not voters, And so it's going to have to come from the Republican conference. Also, too, at the same time, though, it's not just about ICE, DHS, Homeland, all of that. I mean, we have Coast Guard. I have a massive Coast Guard unit in my district. I have a couple, actually. That gets hemmed up. TSA gets hemmed up. But I also, too, understand that right now, I mean, who would have ever thought that I'd be serving during one of the slimmest majorities in U.S. history, and yet here we are, and so we'll get through it. But remember, the president wants this. A majority of the House wants this. All of the frontline members understand how important this is. I've been talking to them. There's a lot of them, and they understand that they need Republicans to show up in the midterms and that they better get it done. The Senate also understands this, and if you don't think President Trump was sending a message by calling all these senators out to their faces in the Oval Office, and now he's hitting them hard, I think that you have something else coming.
And you mentioned, I look back at the original SAVE Act vote, and I was surprised to see, I didn't remember, I was surprised to see that all the vulnerable Republicans did vote for it. I mean, it was a unanimous vote.
It's a wildly popular issue. I have been, and I don't know if it's because it's coming from your what, but I've been pretty good on the 80-20 issues. new parents voting and banning insider trading. It's like, if we did that, I mean, if I was in charge of the outreach for the midterms, I'd have like a winning margin by a lot.
Let's talk about that. You've been a big proponent of the stock trading ban, something I know you and Jake have talked a lot about over the last few months. You have a bipartisan bill that would be a strict stock trading ban. Speaker Mike Johnson enlisted Brian Steele to create a new version, much less strict, allows for selling of stock in Congress. Are you okay with that change, or are you going to stick to your guns and say, no, it needs to be mine?
So the one that we did on discharge petition, I believe was a better bill. But when Hakeem Jeffries came out and said, don't support it, it killed that bill. And so the workaround is for, you do have members on both sides that come in from the private sector that aren't becoming multimillionaires in office via the stock trading. I can name a few. But if you then force those members to divest, then you face the risk, and we have heard it, that some people will resign because they'll be taking sometimes $2 to $3 million in hits in the divestment.
No, you could also you could waive that if you wanted to.
Well, but I think the problem is that also, would it, if people come in, right? Like, let's say you come in, you're a big CEO, you get elected to office, and you have this already pre-existing, and then you're forced to sell it. If you can keep it, that's one thing, and then maybe sell at a later time. But I think the bigger issue in solving this is these individual stock trades. And I think if you can at least prohibit that for members of Congress, their dependent children, and their spouses, it would be a massive win. Then there's this question of, okay, well, do we want to put in the legislative and executive branch? And my thing with that is that when I hear, and when we initially started these conversations, it was never about the executive or legislative. And what I'm not going to do is, I'm not going to intentionally engage in like what I feel is poking the president in the eye just to poke the president in the eye. So I was like, well, I'd be okay with that then if we then start it in 2028. But if you guys are trying to make the implication that the president's doing that, I'm not down with that. And so that's why I was like, let's start on the House, go over there. But again, you have to know when to take the deal and the negotiation on the table. And I think that if we can get this done, it's a step forward in the right direction. I can only move it so far without blowing it up. And I think the fact that we're even talking about this, I moved it pretty damn far.
You did move it far, but my sense is now, because Johnson killed your thing, right?
Which thing?
Well, Hakeem Jeffrey. Hakeem.
Wait.
Well, no, the stock trade. Well, that's a longer convo. The stock trade. I mean,
just, we love you, Mike.
Yeah, Jeffries and Johnson both killed your discharge, right?
It's something you go after insider trading. A lot of people want to kill it.
Right. I'm not criticizing you. This is just an acknowledgement of the reality. I do think now that it becomes a lot less likely that this gets done this Congress. Do you agree with that?
I actually just talked to Sile and to Johnson, and I think that we will pass our version, or they're at least going to put it on the floor probably before the State of the Union. And then there's already a Senate companion bill. And then after the State of the Union, they're going to push for it to go through the Senate, but we'll see what happens. The president supports it. I think people in Senate are starting to get used to the idea, although they did not support the Hawley bill that had come out. And to be clear, ours is completely different from Hawley. But again, these are some very common sense issues where a majority of Americans don't want their members of Congress trading stocks. And by the way, how is it fair that people are on committees of jurisdiction trading these stocks?
You're preaching to the choir.
It's
We've
like
written about this for 50 years.
And then people, I was sitting on the House steps of the Perch. I'm like, we're watching Unusual Whales. I'm like, this is crazy. Yeah. And then so you push it, and then, people hate you, and then they realize how popular it is. And
we don't have to go back as far as
that's like a whole separate thing.
We have a whole other show. I want to get to two last issues before we get to rapid fire. I want to talk about the House GOP leadership. You just said we love you, Mike. Grade Mike Johnson's performance as Congress.
Given circumstances, I'd say 8. 10 is really, really 10 is like your perfect.
Tip O'Neill or Well, I mean,
no one's gonna get 10 while I'm in office. Just because I know
pushing them.
Yeah, I'm pushing. But you know what? I understand the majority. My critique and what I tell them is that you have to listen to what the base is asking for. You have to push, and it's so hard, and he knows this, but when you're here, the mindset and mentality of people are so much different than when you're traveling or you go back home. And that's why I try to go home as much as I can, because you just get a different feel of what actually matters to these people. An example would be, a lot of people have, I think, heartburn about potentially capping prescription pricing on both sides. And that's because of who they're around, the lobbying efforts coming in here.
You're saying members had heartburn.
Have heartburn about that. But these are issues that a majority, if you're not in Congress and you're not talking to lobbyists, like a lot of people are like, yeah, like I'm getting killed on these, like this is actually helping me, right? You could talk about capping student loan interest. That's another one. I'm actually meeting with the White House about that next week. And it's me, Lawler, Moskowitz to actually have a bill on this. That's a huge one, 2%. Look, I put myself through college using the GI Bill. I didn't have student loan debt. However, I understand that if you have people that don't have the financial ability to pay, that are trying to better themselves, doctors, lawyers, etc., even teachers, how is it fair that they're spending literally like 25 plus years paying back this debt? And they might have already paid it back, but the interest on it's like killing us.
It's not a traditional Republican issue to say.
No, it's not, but it's so important. And so I think that these are very good issues, but like that's kind of the more comments of maybe populist approach to these things. And so I do think that if you allow more of the traditional process, which is what I've been doing, like embrace discharge petitions. That's in our rules for a reason. That's not just a tool of the minority, not siloing it around just what leadership or really what special interest is pushing for. But again, I think on my scale, 8's probably 10 because you're not going to ever get better than that.
Okay, so let's talk about Russia. You've gotten a lot of attention, let's say, from meeting.
I will talk Russia all day long.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Well, we don't have all day long, but
I'm coming back.
Okay. You've had a lot of contact in recent months with Russian officials.
With the special envoy, the ambassador,
and the special envoy from the U.S. and Putin's special envoy. Talk about that. I mean, this is I think everybody kind of agrees, a huge geopolitical foe. What do you
say that?
Like, what? Yeah, God. What is your view on the U.S. relationship with Putin, and why get in with these?
Why get involved? Because right now, and this goes into, I think also to where I take money from. When President Trump got elected, he made it very clear that he wanted to end and index the war in Ukraine, period. I think anyone, regardless of where you're at on this issue, agrees that there's a lot of people getting killed on both sides and that it needs to end. And I realized that there were a lot of people, even sometimes on foreign affairs, that in intel that were going to Ukraine. I even went to Poland and I met with the Ukrainian officials directly, but no one was opening up the door for encouraging peace talks and actually normalizing that relationship. And that is dangerous, especially when you have just the administration leading on it, but no support from Congress. And I think this perspective of that, and it does seem that a lot of Congress is old and still in this Cold War era mindset. I'm not saying that Russia are our best friends, but what I am saying is that if we have an opportunity to open up the door for peace talks and there's a legitimate opportunity for a $2 trillion trade deal, I'm going to help encourage that. And so I think that the position that we're in currently, like Wynkoff is doing amazing, Kushner's doing amazing. And I think that we're very close to a peace deal. But also too, at the same time, I'm meeting with, the Ukrainian Orthodox members, Russian Orthodox members. I was just at the International Prayer Breakfast. And I think they did this on purpose, but I sat at a table with many Ukrainians. So
funny how that happens.
I don't know how that happened, but and in talking with everyone, I've traveled to Romania, I've traveled to Moldova, surrounding territories and countries, and everyone wants the war to end, except for if you happen to take massive money from a lot of these defense contractors or happen to be on a committee that oversees the sales of weapons. It's interesting how that happens. Or you have stocks personally invested in a lot of these defense companies. So I will continue to advocate. I think that peace should be probably our first perspective, but it was wild to me when I met with the ambassador of Russia that there was not more open dialogue engaging them, because you would think that if Congress's main authorities to vote on funding and war, that we would at least want to do everything that we can to prevent that from happening. And so that's why I initially started the talks. Now I can say that I do believe that we're on the right side of history. I do think that President Trump will be able to negotiate a peace deal. I've had now many conversations, and that I've actually received authorization from Marco Rubio directly to host members of Duma to come to the United States. And so we're waiting on the approvals from the State Department on their visas, but that'll happen in the coming months. I just can't say when because of security reasons, but you guys will see that. And that'll be the first, I think, country to country meeting of their parliament and our Congress in decades. All right. So it's a very big thing.
Yeah. That'll be controversial because a lot of people think these are bad dudes.
You know what, though? Should we not be advocating for peace, right? Should we not be, if we could end the war tomorrow and you had a position to meet with them to encourage that, would you not take the meeting? And I think that's the question.
Yep.
All right. Before we let you go, we could go way deeper on this, but unfortunately we are out of time. A few rapid fire questions. Yeah. Who is your best friend on the other side of the aisle?
Jared Moskowitz. Hands down. I love Jared.
There's a lot of Democrats' Republicans' best friend.
We go back and forth with Jared.
Okay. This is a question that I think a lot of people will be interested in. UFOs, do we have, what
is happening? You've been a big advocate on transparency for this.
Yeah. There's a lot of important agencies looking into this, and there's something there.
Like what? There are aliens.
There's evidence of stuff that we can't explain. And it is really shady that we're being blatantly denied access to some of this information and that it's being leaked out to us.
Do you think, here's my question, and I know we're over time, so we gotta go. Here's my question. Are there people in the government today who know this stuff? Who could tell you, yes, there are aliens out there and they're watching us?
I think it depends on who you talk to if they're going to call it an alien or not.
Whatever.
But I think that there are people in government that will tell you there is stuff that we have evidence of that we cannot humanly explain.
All right. We will leave it there, Jake.
Dude, this is so...
This is really what he's going to have a show just
But
on
you know
this.
what? I have other people that have seen the same stuff I've seen.
And you're convinced?
I'm not the only agency.
All right. We are going to leave it there.
And I have to cover that. People are going to say I'm a CIA shell. I'm not even at the CIA, but I'm saying that there's other agencies and other members of Congress.
Yeah. All right.
Aliens.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Presented by American Beverage. When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing clear information about the ingredients in their beverages at goodtoknowfacts.org. Because when it's time to decide what goes on your table, facts are the first ingredient. No spin, no judgment. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
All right, and we are back to break that conversation down with congressional reporter Mychael Schnell, MS Now, and the great, the only, John.
Certainly the only. I love
wonderful intro. Wonderful
Thank
intro.
you both
Co-founder of
so much for joining us on a very busy week. I want to start with you, Jake. What was your biggest takeaway from that conversation?
There's a lot to unpack there. Brez and I have been, we'll just start with the stock trading quickly. Brez and I are pretty convinced there's not going to be a stock trading bill. I think that basically confirmed it to us or to me. They'll put something on the floor. We'll see if it passes. That's number one. Number two.
But it was interesting how she said, even though it's not getting to the finish line, she feels like she's making progress.
She definitely is making progress.
I think that all of them are. And I thought her idea was a good idea. I mean, she's trying to remove some of the objections. Right. She's trying to remove objections. They can't trade while they're in office, that kind
okay if it's not her bill, which oftentimes that's not point of pride in legislating.
No pride of authorship, as he said.
So including the administration is going to be a red line for Democrats to say, but we're not going to start that till 2028. So
Trump crypto.
I get it.
I actually think, to be honest with you, I think there's an argument to be made that you shouldn't start any of this until 2028.
It started with a new Congress.
that'll be a problem for Democrats.
New president, new Congress. Yeah.
But I do agree with this, and I'll get to my other point in a second. I think we all probably are on the same page on this. Stock trading ban is probably a 95.5 issue.
It's even more.
Somebody who's against it, I mean, it's bad.
Besides rich members of Congress.
Or Rob Bresnahan.
Right. Well, okay, so let's start.
I'm not related to.
Yeah. That you know of.
That I know of, but we could be, but I'm not. Yeah.
Okay, number two issue is the Save America Act, which is not a voter ID. It is a voter ID plus a citizenship verification law. Here's the thing. She's not going to push for it on the DHS bill next week, which is probably good news for Mike Johnson. Let's put it that way. Good news for Mike Johnson. One piece of good news. But putting it on FISA, which is a must-pass bill that they already struggle with every year, and struggle is an understatement. I mean, they've had to bring in, we've all covered, CIA directors, defense secretaries,
and Jordan and all these guys. They don't like it. They've not liked it.
And you've heard what she said. I mean, she said, I'd be fine if FISA went away. I mean, what do you got? What do you
She over some interesting reform ideas also. I think, look, I think her point is if you want the SAVE Act, and again, you noted it's not just a voter ID and how she calls a voter ID. It's smart of her to do that because it's more than that. But there's not that many must-pass pieces of legislation, right? They're going to do
highway bill, crypto, maybe.
But they can always do an extension. Yep. But I guess those are must-pass. Farm bill, they're out there. But like now we're in an area, once this DHS thing there's not a lot of places to do this. So I think this is smart of her to aim for that or to have the threat out there.
What do you think?
Not to mention, FISA is one of those issues where it's not just Dem Republican. It splits along very odd party lines, Intel, judiciary, but just different interesting camps. So there's more opportunity for horse trading there, right? It's not just the typical lines and you're saying, well, Democrats, I have to give you something if you want this. Maybe a Republican on Intel can try to work their Democratic colleagues on Intel or vice versa. So I think it's interesting there. There may be some more play for it. But to your point, you said it's not good to put a difficult issue into an even more difficult issue. I mean, this is just going to be a complete disaster. It's going to go right up to the deadline, most likely. It's going to be messy, but I get what she's doing here and putting it in a must-pass bill and in a unique one where she can sort of make some interesting coalitions that cross party lines.
If you are Mike Johnson, what you do now, if it were me, if I were Mike Johnson, and I'm not, at least
for that point of clarification.
That would be weird if I were hosting this and I was Mike Johnson. What you do is you say, if you don't want the SAVE Act or the Save America Act on FISA, you try to build a coalition to pass a rule of Republicans on Intel, Democrats on Intel, and appropriators and defense hawks. And you say, we're going to have to work together, two parties, to get a rule through and to stave this off because Johnson's hands are going to be tied here. This is going to be an incredibly difficult.
This is another one where Trump's going to have to get involved.
Well, and he's 100%. I mean,
this is the only way this will pass.
The SAVE Act and voter ID and citizenship verification is like potentially his top issue, right? I mean, he's very into this stuff.
Yeah, but FISA is also important. The intelligence agencies, you and I have sat through briefings for the Justice Department. You probably have. I mean, Bondi will work on this. Attorney General Pam Bondi, Rubio will work on this.
For sure.
Rubio will be calling her. All of them will be calling. Trump will be calling her. I could see people going down to the White House we got to have this. So we'll see. But she's smart in positioning this. She's keeping it alive because now they've got in the back of the head, I can't just ignore her. I have to deal with her.
Also, it's a longer news cycle for her, right? Because the DHS stuff, that's next week. She's only got from then to there. But now you're talking about what, March, April?
She's pretty key once, right? So she's got to find the next bite of the apple, right? On the DHS stuff. All right. I want to talk about two other things before we get to the wrapping this up with our That's Not Gonna Fly, my favorite part of the show. Johnson, she gave an 8.
That's impressive for Johnson.
I thought that was a really basically a 10, but
it can't be 10
because they can't be, right? Yeah,
I thought that was I was surprised by that.
Yeah, listen, she's done a lot of. We didn't have time to talk about this, but we've written a lot about her interactions with Johnson, specifically hers, because she was. I will say she has picked a lot of issues that are not traditional Republican issues and she does have a point.
Talking about loans interest. And
and remember the parental leave thing, which we all cover, was huge. And she cut a deal with Johnson. I told her at the time.
Which infuriated Democrats who don't trust her over that because they felt she abandoned them at the end. But she won, but it came at a price because she burned some bridges there and she knew what she was doing. Yeah.
I thought she folded too early because she really had Johnson.
She got it. You got to give her credit for that.
I disagree. I disagree with her play
member.
There.
She's made herself important in a 1-seat majority, though. Yeah. Everyone is king and queen,
and she's willing to push down things. I want to get to Russia because it is important to her. Posture very different and making certainly defense hawks Republicans in the traditional Republican sense are not where she is when it comes to trying to meet with them, to negotiate, to think that there's peace going forward. She's putting herself. She's saying she's got the blessing of Rubio to do some of these talks.
Do something with the Russian parliamentarian or Duma. I mean, listen. I think her point. This is kind of been modified, and Marjorie Taylor Greene thing, and also some of the America Firsters, but it's like, look at who's making money off the war. Look who's like that thing. And she tied it back to stock trading. And the committee's like, there's this whole war. There's a war, profiteering caucus or not caucus. There's a whole universe of people who are making money off war and conflict. And she's like, and it gets to the same thing. And she has a philosophy. You may not agree with it, but she has a philosophy and it fits in it. I just think this issue I think the Ukraine, I think there's and I'm not criticizing her, but there's a remarkable lack of sensitivity to the Ukrainians here about, like, she's talking about, I've sat with Ukrainians, but like, that, you know, they don't want to give up their country. That's why they're fighting every day and getting bombed every night. So,
but Mychael, this is the worldview of a lot of these people who are close to Trump now, right? I mean, don't you think so?
This is the America First idea. Yes, this is what they are looking for. This is more of the populist idea. Absolutely. I'll take it back to your initial question, Anna, just like a broader view of Paulina Luna in general and her giving Johnson an 8. She's got her hand in foreign policy right now. She's had her hand in the SAVE Act and the immigration stuff and the voter ID stuff. She's done the parental issues. She does the weird UFO stuff. She's
not weird. They're aliens.
She's been one of the ones who's made Johnson's life a living hell at some points this year, but she's still giving him an 8. I don't know, as there's talk about maybe cleaning out shop in Republican leadership. I'm not saying that they'll like her, but she's certainly trying to make a lane for herself, I think, in terms of getting a foot in every single area.
I don't know if leadership or she wants to run statewide or she has national ambitions. She's clearly an ambitious, clearly smart, and she's young. She's young
and effective in getting her issues out there. I mean, think of how many other.
But she's not doing the anti-G thing where you become so toxic. She's
playing the inside baseball game.
Yeah, but she's smart about it.
All right, we are going to get to That's Not Going to Fly, my favorite segment. Point of privilege, Mychael, you go first.
It's not going to fly that John Rose thought he was going to extend this shutdown because he was upset about how he's doing in the governor's race. I know he said it was about the SAVE Act.
Yeah, sure.
Johnson sort of gave all the cards, went off the floor. He goes, John is engaged in a tight race for the governorship of Tennessee. He's thoughtful about that, and he wants a fair fight there, so that's what we discussed. Sort of putting out the cards. It came a few days after Trump praised Marsha Blackburn. Not going to fly that he's going to continue that.
Let me tell you something. Salty. Marsha Blackburn is going to probably be the next governor of Tennessee.
100%.
And whether Trump endorses her or not,
she doesn't.
I don't think
Marsha Blackburn is a powerhouse.
Extending the shutdown was going to help John Rose.
No.
Got him a headline though,
sir.
I want to talk about the Clinton subpoenas. I mean, we wrote a number, we've been writing for months, that their position was not going to work. I mean, not going to fly. I mean, Bill and Hillary Clinton are different places on this. Bill Clinton clearly had some relationship with Epstein. I don't know enough about it to say it, but she didn't. She is calling them out today, talking about, I want to testify publicly. She's calling out Jim Comer. But I think them standing on this, that we're not going to respond to a congressional subpoena, they can't. That there was too many things. These younger Democrats don't care about the Clintons, and they want the Epstein issue, and they were not giving it up for the Clintons. They were not going to give it up for that.
And we reported there could have been dozens of Democrats who voted to hold them.
And this Trump Justice Department would prosecute. I don't know if they get an indictment in D.C. in a D.C. grand jury, but they would prosecute them.
Yep. Okay. Andrew, my not going to fly is Andrew and Laura have just reported that John Thune is threatening to cancel the Munich Security Conference. They are not going to cancel that trip. These senators live to go to these international forums.
You could go a day late.
This is like taking away their like Christmas presents. This is
why you're a senator.
You're it's also like, when they go to these things, they get treated like they're royalty. Yeah. They ain't skipping Munich, dude. They'll let DHS go unfunded for a month before getting rid of that thing.
All right, mine. I'm going back to the well, guys. DC snow removal.
Oh my God.
It is not going to fly. Or I might be on this until March or April when the snow finally melts, because it has not gotten any better. It is insane. I just don't understand.
My street, it's not really plowed. It's like, listen, I know I don't want to get into public workers. This is a tremendous failure of leadership from the top. They had like a week, they knew the storm was coming, and they still screwed it up. I can't remember like a whole DC public being so infuriated about one issue. Like,
and there's not one. We get the announcement of John Bresnahan for mayor.
I don't want to listen. I want you to come back to the next flyout day where I will have something more to say. I'm going to go meet with my people. And yeah.
All right. On that note, thank you both so much for joining us, and thank you for watching Fly Day. All right, what a fun show, Jake. We are always looking ahead here at Punchbowl News. Let's talk about the mess next week.
Want to talk about aliens?
I mean, that was actually, we might have a whole special flyout day.
Punchbowl News Premium Alien Plus coverage. UFOs for everybody. No, let's talk about DHS. DHS funding runs out a week from Friday, the 13th, right up against President's Day recess, right up against the Munich Security Conference, as we just discussed. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer released a list of 10 demands. And I got a funny text last night from a Republican source that said, basically dismissing this, saying, this was the quote, "Here are 15 plus legislative proposals 8 days before a shutdown. As a sign of good faith, we demand you fire one of your cabinet secretaries." So that's how they feel. They feel that these are not reasonable. They feel like it's too much to chew right now. The question is, Anna, and this is the ultimate question when it comes to Donald Trump, and was the crux of The Hill to Die On, which we wrote many years ago. Like, do they get Trump in a room and does he say, yeah, sure, I'll do warrants, I'll do no mask?
Ask for more than they actually think they're going to get.
So I don't know that works anymore. Can I tell you why? Because people say you folded. People say you caved. People say this is not enough. This is what you wanted. This is it. I agree with you. You always have to ask for more. In my negotiations with you, I said,
saying, in my marriage, at my work, I feel like you're always asking for a little bit more than me get somewhere in the middle.
I asked for, a Gulfstream 800 jet, and I got a G6. I mean, I don't know, like the Punchbowl News Air is flying.
On that note,
we don't have a plane.
That'd
be fun though, wouldn't it?
Anyway, it's going to be a mess. Yeah. We'll have to see a likely, extension of some sort.
Yeah, have to be short term, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we will be all over it. Come back next week because we are going to be talking about what the government is going to do and where we go next when it comes to DHS funding. Thank you for watching FIOTE.
Have a great day, great weekend. Stay safe, everybody. Anthony Davis is coming to Washington.